So Danny, as for example, you're off season right now, but it's been a weird off season.
Yeah, definitely. It's been one. So probably the start of lockdown and when rugby was kind of finished for the season, it was that of, right, I'm going to eat whatever I want. I'm going to drink as much as I want. And I've come to a point where I'm bored, or 2 weeks ago I came to a point where I'm bored of doing this now. I need to start getting back into that mindset of, well, the guidance is changing all the time. We could be back to rugby in September. We could be ready to hit the gas going into games in September. So I need to get myself into a position where I'm going to be fit enough to play 80 minutes week in, week out for the season. So I kind of agree with what you were saying about your brother, Danny, having those two mindsets of kind of fat Danny and fit Danny, fit using very loosely there. But getting back into that groove of eating well, not going out on the lash every night or drinking at home every night, and just kind of focusing on what my own personal goals are.
So both of you have mentioned football and rugby. Do you see any difference between the two sports? Danny as a player, Dan as a coach. Do you see any differences between the way the sports deal with the mental health or the well-being of players?
Yes and no. Yes and no. It has got to be the answer. I mean, I grew up playing football to a high level, to academy at West Ham, trialled at West Ham, got through at West Ham until I got my injury, and then was told not to play football again. So I was 15 or 16 at the time. Took up rugby at 18. So I've seen both sports, and I coach both sports now. The difference for me, rugby is very much a family sport. It involves everybody. It takes everybody in. Football doesn't seem to take everybody in. So as a coach, on a Tuesday night, I take 25 kids, something like that, for football. Not one single parent is on the touchline watching that session. So that's an hour of kids playing football, their kids playing football that they don't see. And yet for rugby, up until the age of 13, it is mandatory that a parent is on the touchline watching that child play. So when we turn up on a Sunday, our club is an entire family environment with hundreds of people around, because you've got the kids playing their sports at each different year group going up, and you've got all the parents watching or sitting in the bar, and it's a real family feel. It's a real family environment. It's a social environment, and that's what rugby is about for me. It's a social family environment, and everyone, all the way through the year groups, is part of that family. So they are different in that sense.
Quickly on that, did you get any support from West Ham when you got the injury and you were a kid and you couldn't play anymore, and your hopes and dreams were to be a professional football player?
I remember the day that my doctor told me that I wasn't able to do anything, even run for a bus. His exact words to me were, if you don't do anything, if you carry on, you won't be able to walk by the time you're 30. Classified it as Osgood-Schlatter's disease, so essentially had a knee problem. For a goalkeeper, that wasn't great. Bearing in mind I'd grown up watching Phil Parkes as my idol. Danny, you're a goalkeeper, you'll know what I mean here.
Football,
Phil
designed his forehead for football, it just goes straight over.
Mate, Phil Parkes got to the grand old age of 36, 37, 38, and would dive just after the ball was kicked. It would quite often hit the back of the net as he was in midair. He had two dodgy knees, but this guy was my hero as I grew up. And I remember standing on the North Bank at West Ham, watching this guy in goal, thinking one day this is going to be me. But do you know what? I remember that moment where the doctor told me I couldn't go and do sport, and it ruined me from a mental point of view, because I mean, computer games were different then, but I was outside 7 days a week. We played football during the summer. We played cricket during the winter. I was never very good at cricket, but you just went out and you played cricket or you played football. You used to go to the park and you would just meet other people that wanted to kick a ball around, and you'd play sports. And you would just do this year in, year out. It didn't matter if it was raining, didn't matter if it was sunny. That was my life. And then to be told I couldn't do that, and for a prolonged period of time, and this was literally just after I'd taken the trials at West Ham, it was shocking for me. I honestly didn't know where to take that. And then my parents sent me to a school where the playing fields backed onto the West Ham training ground. So I was then watching people doing what I wanted to be doing. And I went to a school that played rugby. You weren't allowed to play football for the first 3 years. You had to play rugby to effectively change sports. But for me, it was a good move because it was a safer sport for me to play, given where my injury was. So, yeah, no, it was just tough. And I don't think, did West Ham do anything for me? No, probably not. I don't think they did, because I think I wasn't quite on the radar enough to be someone who was coming back. That was my window closed.
That must be harsh at you to know that you be looking to go through that thing, and then it must be a difficult situation for kids who, when they are all their hopes and dreams, I suppose, of their dream job is nearly there, and then to lose it, to an injury or something like that, it must be horrible. I've never been at a half decent level of sport, so I wouldn't. It's not something I'm aware of. Danny, what were your experiences of football as a kid?
So I'd agree with Dan, yes and no, in terms of how both sports compare. With football, as I was saying earlier, I lost my brother when I was 16, 17. Halfway through my first year of college, which coincidentally I was over at Basingstoke Town with their football academy. So non-league level, didn't do too badly, used to train with the first team, used to travel away with the first team as well. So I've got kind of that all-round footballer experience, but at a very, very part-time level. But the support that I received because of that bereavement, and then kind of the spiral with my mental health at the time, was absolutely second to none. The academy manager was also the first team manager, so he knew my situation. A handful of the first team players were really there for me and really supportive. And so were the academy guys as well. It was just almost having that family feel around you, like we said with the rugby club and how supportive everyone is there. I can liken it to that, and that's probably the only time within football that I've experienced that, is after a situation that has absolutely knocked me for six. But I had a really good experience because of that, and the support that was in place, and the ability to knock on the manager's door first thing in the morning, have a coffee and have a chat if I was feeling a bit crappy about the day going forward. So I've had a really positive experience with football. And even the clubs that I moved on to after Basingstoke, they were supportive of my situation, which was fantastic. So yeah.